I'm going to take our last speaker now, as Chris Baugh, who's the Assistant General Secretary of the PCS and has played a really important and leading role in getting the work of the trade union group, the campaign against climate change, 1 million climate jobs, and a number of other initiatives around tackling climate change within the trade unions. I'm going to hand over to Chris in one sec, just to alert you that both Zita and Chris need to leave at 2:45 because they've got their PCS event, dinner, whatever it was. So
no, it's not dinner, it's Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh,
entertainers.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not trying to spread rumours dinner versus Jeremy Corbyn. So they're going to a meeting with Jeremy Corbyn. So if you've got questions for Chris or Zita, and we'll take those first, just in case we lose them early on. The rest of the speakers are staying. Chris.
Yeah, well, thanks for the intro, and thanks for everybody taking time to attend the meeting. I mean, I'm really pleased to be able to follow the comments that have been made by all of the speakers, and to follow a debate that took place yesterday. In fact, the only debate and vote that took place in the course of the week. And I'm with Manuel. I think, well, first of all, I want to congratulate the TSSA for the motion that they tabled that set out a whole range of things, the global dimension, the role of trade unions for energy democracy, the support that's picking up in the UK and internationally around climate jobs, air pollution. If you look at the motion, I mean, it was again a cracking motion, and probably the clearest and most radical statement on climate that's ever been tabled in the TUC. So I'm with Manuel. I'm not daunted by the fact. I mean, it's various estimates. It looked like 2/3 to a third the motion was defeated, but this is part of a debate that we're having, and we've still got some way to go, and the vote and the debate itself demonstrates how far we've got to go. Because, let me just say, I think, the main angle of opposition, of course, there's a lot at stake, not least the decision that Theresa May is expected to make in early October about a third runway, which has been put back and back. Many of the big industrial unions, including the TUC, have been signed up to supporting a third runway. I think it was slightly disingenuous to conflate that particular issue with the suggestion that we were all anti-aviation and threatening jobs across the entire sector. And as a union that organises in the aviation sector, we have thousands of members who work in that sector, and I want to say that it's not been easy necessarily to win, carry members and reps with us, but we've grappled with this question. For example, we commissioned Roger Seifert, a report which has been published, which takes apart, it deconstructs the claims made by the Heathrow Consortium on the ridiculous job claims and the economic benefits. And we're saying to our members that if the decision to goes ahead with a third runway, this won't compromise our nuts and bolts union job of fighting to protect the paid jobs and conditions of our members at Heathrow. There will be continued mass public opposition, probably expressed in direct action. And yes, we have a duty, I think as Tony in the debate said, that you cannot reconcile the expansion of the airports, the opening of a third runway, with meeting the UK climate targets and the targets that we signed up to in Paris. So I don't think any of us doubt the difficulties, but this is a debate that we've got to have, and I think we have to look at the obstacles in the way. I mean, the first being that as Bill was talking, a genuine fear, the decline of manufacturing, the genuine fear of job loss that exists in many parts of the UK. The fact that you can talk to some really good trade union activists, socialists, who'll go, yeah, well, I was chatting with a few, I won't embarrass them, but I mean, they were going, well, it's not really climate, it's not really an issue, Chris, for our members. We're confronted with the immediate day-to-day industrial issues, and we've still got a job of work to do to explain the science, and as Sean was saying, and as others were saying, it can sometimes come up as a bit of a distant, abstract, and overly technical question. So there's still a hell of a lot of work to be done to explain the immediacy of the threat. And the fact is, you cannot stand up and say we support airport expansion, that we are prepared to maintain the current levels of production and energy production from fossil fuel industries in the UK economy. That cannot be reconciled with the decisive action that's needed to cut greenhouse gases. And that's one of the things I don't think that came over clearly enough in the debate, but that's part of the debate and the battle that we're having. I mean, you throw into the mix the fact that there's always been some degree of tension between the big industrial unions, and I mean, I sometimes suggest in some of the arguments I might have with some of the officials in another union, again I won't mention, almost implication, well, you know, what do you know, you civil servant? Unless you've sort of washed your hands in Swarthega in the last week or two, you're not really qualified to be entering into a debate about manufacturing processes. We've also got the traditional tension between trade unions and the environmental movement, where the environmental movement needs to realise that there is a worker and class dimension. It's not enough to stand outside polluting industries, calling for them to be shut down. That's the quickest way of alienating the workers and playing into the hands of the bosses in the first place. And again, we've all worked to try and bridge and overcome all of those particular problems. So really, in conclusion, the fear of job loss is real. It's not, some may play on it, some may be slightly disingenuous in the debate, but the fear of those workers in the gas, oil, and formerly coal industry, those are genuine fears of workers that we as a trade union movement have got to deal with. But of course, we also have to point out the threat. Look at the job cuts in the oil industries. Look at the job cuts. There was disputes in the gas industry against the cuts by the employer recently. You can see the political pressure growing against the fossil fuel industry. You can see, although green transition from a capitalist perspective, as Sean was rightly saying, has proved to be a con, you can see early signs of where capitalism is starting to realise, with big disinvestment campaigns. Capitalists are going to transfer their wealth into what they perceive to be more productive areas of the future. So the point here is that it's actually the workers in the most energy-intensive industries that have most to fear from climate change, unless the trade union movement places itself at the heart of this entire debate. It's not, to use the disparaging terms, again, thinking of a GMB official who's, likes to go, we all know who he is, and talks about tree huggers and hedge monkeys and all this type of thing. So it just gives you a bit of a flavour of the difficulty we still have to have a proper engagement with workers in that particular sector. So I just come back and finish really with the point that I think Manuel, or everybody I think has commented on, but Manuel opened with. All workers, most notably those in the energy-intensive industries, have most to lose if we don't do a number of things. And the first is to build on climate jobs, the ideas within that, to promote the ideas of trade unions for energy democracy, about popular control and ownership. It's about thinking and acting both globally and organising groups in communities, taking the issues into trade union branches. Yes, now I think with a far more receptive audience into the Labour Party, but bringing people together around local campaigns that link to the Labour and the environmental movement. But we've got to set out, as Manuel said, a clear economic plan that involves a transition away from the dependency on the burning of fossil fuels towards their gradual replacement by investing in renewables. And we've got to really define what we mean by a just transition in a way that's convincing to workers in that sector, that provides genuine job protection, a new deal for workers in this sector. Of course, we can't just rely, we want government to legislate backed up by union power, because as Bill was saying, in many of these sectors, the union is strong in these sectors, and they can use that power to influence the transition, and need to do so. Goes the same with the retraining, the investment, and yes, we're back to the idea, and I'll just finish on this particular point, because I keep a little cutting from the Financial Times that says Olympic success demonstrates the benefit of central planning. As somebody, and the concept of planning has become discredited for a reason we haven't got time to develop here. But it comes back to this question. It is about public ownership. It's about questions of public control. It is about ensuring that the transition is based on local, municipal and regional and government initiatives, a part of a wider economic and, yes, dare I say it, I would argue, a socialist, but a democratic socialist plan. And this is the nature of the debate, and I think we've made a good start this week, but again, I think we all know that there's plenty of work to be done, but there's plenty of work that can be done to win workers in these sectors to the cause that I think we're trying to advance at this meeting tonight.
Thanks very much, Chris. Okay, so it's the usual routine. If you want to speak, stick your hand up.